We're here with Chris Saucedo of Saucy Images, and he is a professional photographer, and this is along the lines of staying true to hashtag fotoFriday. And we're talking about adventures in photography. And hey, Nate, how's it going? I'm going to try to honor everybody that's jumping on and acknowledge there's a lot of people getting on, so it's going to be a task, but
hey Nate,
we're super grateful to have you, Chris, and just to discuss those things in photography and your creativity, and in this day and age where it's a challenge to do what you love and be able to make a living at it, which is that in and of itself is awesome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking time out of your day to bless us with your knowledge and your experiences and your insight and your inspiration.
Man, it's great to be here. Thank you for giving me a platform to tell some stories and hopefully inspire others out there who are maybe getting started or maybe just need a little pick me up. Some of that. The stories from the field always get me excited and motivated. So I'm absolutely happy to be here.
Nice. Well, we're very grateful. And it's good to reconnect,
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of go through and chat, podcast style, and we'll just jump right in. And so how did you get started in photography in the first place? Like what motivated you or inspired you to do that?
I guess number one was having a camera available to me was probably the number one thing. And I have my uncle and my aunt to thank for that. My aunt was is a retired teacher, and she was a photographer, and so she inspired me. My Aunt Alva, and her brother Leroy Dominguez, who is a photographer himself. I got started shooting 35 millimeter on a camera, I think, that he had used in Vietnam. So,
oh,
wow. So having, a camera available to me was exciting. The other thing was that, I rode skateboards and I was interested in all the cool stuff. I wasn't particularly great at it. And so I felt like out of the group of friends that I hung out with, I was probably the one that was most capable of taking the pictures and not performing the tricks. So I ended up, getting, like a lot of folks, you end up photographing the things that inspire you or that you identify with. And, I think it really started when I got into high school. Again, my Aunt Alva suggested that I go talk to the newspaper, the teacher that was responsible for helping publish the school paper, and who was also responsible for putting the yearbook together. So she suggested that I go talk to him and see about maybe taking some photos for the school. So high school was where I got my my feet wet with actual photography, and so this is early 90s. So the digital realm hadn't really made its way to my hands just yet. I think it was still pretty much in development. So it was 35 millimeter, and I got to learn from some of the students that were there before me on how to use the dark room, and of course going to workshops that were offered through high school journalism classes, played a big role in bringing me up to speed. So yeah, that's kind of where it got started. And you know, the film and processing was you know, expensive, and so I had to scrape together money, or you know, put money, you know, that would probably be spent on other things, put money toward you know, processing, buying film, and of course, you know, that type of stuff. But you know, as you know, a 14, 15-year-old young man, I think that was one of the things that you know, it was a great outlet, and it was technology. It was cutting edge for the time. You know, it was exciting, and then I guess you know, subliminally, I think it was great to be able to identify with the photos that I was taking. So you know, all the skateboarding, you know, all of the different stuff that you know, that I was you know, able to be you know, present for and cover with a camera. And by no means was that work that great. I mean, I was stumbling through, you know, the settings and understanding how to, you know, how to work with different light and different film, and didn't have the ability to look down at your camera and get the
right.
you know, figure it out on the fly.
No chipping there, and with the film days.
Yeah. So my older brother said, you know, part of being a photographer is also being a chemist, and it made so much sense when he told me that. This is my older brother handing down some wisdom. You know, so he opened my eyes to all of the other things I needed to know in order to become to, you know, to fulfill the other half of being a photographer. And so yeah, having a darkroom at the school gave me the ability to see, you know, exactly what it was, experiment with, of course, black and white film, and kind of make all the mistakes, you know, that you can learn from, because that's truly where you, you know, you really can advance yourself if you're not afraid to make mistakes. I would say do it on your own time, so that you're not, you know, risking other people's memories, you know, but get out there, shoot photos, take photos of the stuff that you understand the most. I think that's a great way to see where your eye is, and how you can tell a story, and how accurate, you know, that story can be. You know, I think that's one of the things that I felt like I had an opportunity to do, was you know, tell a story from my perspective, and I continue to you know, call on that you know, little bit of motivation, you know, when it's you know, when I'm at work, when I'm doing it for a job. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to welcome a few people that have joined us. So I want to welcome Raven and Mark and Kobe. Thanks for hanging out and joining us. We're talking about photography with Chris from Saucy Images, and Roshan Jaji, is that right?
Roshan.
Forgive me, Roshan. Yeah, forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly, but we're very grateful that you're joining us. I got to take a moment and get power so I don't lose our feed here, because I realized that my phone is a little low. So give me a sec. I'm still here.
You just wanted to show off your equipment back there.
I was like, I charged it, and then I realized that I didn't leave it on the charger all night, so I'm gonna snag some power here from the computer. Make sure that we're good to go. But yeah, so how cool is that? So your beginnings were back in the film era.
Yeah.
And not only so, but what a cool story. Now that was your uncle that gave you the camera,
Yeah, it was his camera, and he was a great photographer. I'm still kind of uncovering photos that he took, but he always gave me some really good pointers. He was the one, uh, you know, uh, inspiring me as a young man, and also, I mentioned my Aunt Alva, who, put a camera in my hands as well, and I think that I felt like I was destined to be the family photographer, and it was definitely something that I if I'm ever asked what my dream job is or would be, a photographer, a professional photographer would be the answer. So, I have my aunt and my uncle to thank for it, and then of course every photographer that I've ever been exposed to their work. I think that's one of the things that I continually look at other people's work to find inspiration, to see how other people tell a story. I think all of us are photographers, and we are, with our phones and having the accessibility of having a camera. I think that all of us, have that ability, or have the ability to be photographers. Some of us tap into it more than others, but there's no reason why everybody can't have the same, reward from taking photos. The thing that keeps me motivated is, a lot of times when you hand somebody their photos after, the event, or after something, after you've taken them, the work, you do has to be good. You have to hold yourself to a standard. You have to look at what other people are, the quality that's out there that you're competing with. And you have to provide that or produce that. One of the things that I think that I enjoy the most is when I talk to people, years later, or some time has passed, and they're like, man, thank you for, taking the time to shoot all those great photos. I don't think I thanked you enough when I got them. And that's, someone that, tends to, they appreciate them. And that's what, as a photographer, you love to know that your work is being appreciated. Because you do it for yourself. You do it because there's something very rewarding about it. Having the ability to satisfy your own creative outlets, and all of the things that photos do for somebody. I could be very selfish and really not let any photos ever out, but there's no fun in that. I think the fun is when you get to share them, and as photographers, we have to challenge ourselves to put stuff out there. I struggle with that all the time. I mean, there's a balance. I don't want to bore my friends. I don't want to put my stuff out there thinking that that I need the gratification from others. But boy, does it really make you feel good when you get when people let you know that they appreciate what you do.
Sure. Yeah. And even just if you guys haven't aren't following Chris on Instagram, you need to go and do that. You need to go follow his profile, Saucy Images Limited, and it's SAUCEY Images Ltd, and just some great work. I mean, obviously South by was not that long ago, so he's got some great stuff up there from South by Southwest. And South by Southwest is a great event, and just the vibe there is you get people from all over the world that are coming and to be a part of it, and then you've got the greatest photography team for any event that's collected in one place, and Chris, you've been a crew chief on that team and part of the leadership of that team, and I think they are very lucky to have you, because the way that you communicate, the way that you mentor and share the experiences that you've had, people really feel encouraged. People are encouraged by your work ethic, the quality of your work, and I think just your attitude of humility. I mean, you've done some pretty amazing things. Yeah, so maybe share with us one of your most inspiring or biggest accomplishments up to date. So you've been at this game for over 20 years. And
yeah.
so in that 20 years of being a professional photographer, maybe there's one or two things that really stand out that were like, oh, this was the big one so far, obviously.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and I think more recently, some of the stuff that I think a lot of people out there could relate to is being entrusted with with the job of getting a photo that potentially can be used or that is going to be used to promote the conference or the festival, like South by Southwest. The pressure's on to deliver good work, but also keeping it together when you are when like I said, you're entrusted to to get to photograph some high visible people that you might admire, people that are out there, and so communication with your subject, whoever it is, you have to approach it from a very professional perspective. You have to not be there fumbling with your camera. You have to do your homework. You have to know. A lot of times you get assigned, or in this situation, you'd be assigned to up and coming artists or directors, producers, actors, actresses. So you may not always know who you're photographing. So being able to do a little bit of research and familiarize yourself if you don't know, or to have, but a lot of times it's just put away the fanboy, and you're there to do a job. And I think the requirements of that job kind of help to focus the the attention to getting the best photo that you can.
Right.
I think so. Let's see. Let me narrow it down. I think more recently it was seeing a photo that I shot of Elon Musk being used by the LA Times. It was being used by, I want to say, like Bloomberg.
Oh, wow.
And then another photo that I photographed of Alex Rodriguez got used in People Espanol. So that was, seeing your work, wind up places and, being paid for that work. I mean, that's one of the highlights. That's one of the things that I think a lot of, you don't have to be a professional photographer to appreciate getting credit for something that, being somewhere and taking a photo, or, having that kind of publicity for your good name,
Right. Yeah.
So being able to photograph and get some of these shots published was probably some of the more rewarding things. There's it's not all rock stars and parties. There's a lot of stuff that you really have to work. You have to deal with crowds. You have to deal with dust on your expensive gear. You have to negotiate your way through a lot of unknowns, and you have to carry, at least, a few pounds extra worth of gear, into this. So, but I think as far as rewarding goes, being published, being recognized. But also, some of those down home things, like being being someone's family photographer, being the photographer that they call when they need when they need something covered. And so I think that some of those are extremely rewarding. I know having being able to do contract work for certain businesses that appreciate what I do, and being called year after year to produce images for them. Those are all, very, very rewarding things as a photographer.
Right.
Yeah. And then of course, when you go on vacation and you get to focus on the things that you want, then, all of the hard work that you and the attention that you put into it to get that quality of work for other people, it comes back around and you get to enjoy it for yourself. So, there's a lot of takeaways from being a photographer and being at it for so many years. I think I still get nervous when like when I do weddings. I still have, I'm still, trying to make sure that nothing's forgotten. And, I think as time has gone on, I've been able to shed those nerves and maybe use those nerves to kind of signify that that we're right on track. If you're not nervous, then then there's something wrong. So being able to take the pressure and all of that, and then turn it into the catalyst that helps you get excel in the work that you need to get done. So yeah, there's I think having been at it for quite a few years, and spending most of that time not being paid a cent for those photos, I think you as a photographer, you do it for yourself and for the value of being somewhere, shooting compelling images of the music that the artists that are creating the music that you listen to. I think it's taking advantage of 2 or 3 things at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of I love music myself, and so you can't help but see things a certain way and want to tell that story, show people maybe what they're missing when they opt to not go not to go see a band or something. So I feel there's a lot of really great things that being a photographer has revealed to me. But yeah, there's some adventure in it also. I think being a fan of music photography, you find yourself right there in the pit, in the mosh pit. Yeah, and even sometimes the musicians can spray water on your gear, and there's all kinds of pitfalls for that. But I think that's where you can kind of rack it up to having adventure, a job that leads you to constant new chartings. That's what I call it.
So you mentioned doing the wedding thing and just the challenge. You also mentioned the nerves kind of going into that. You also mentioned about being prepared. And I think, I can relate to that. I've done a few weddings, and, that being prepared. And I don't think that there's anything more stressful when it comes to photography as is capturing somebody's lifetime moment, like a wedding.
Yeah.
And so even doing that and sharing that is huge, and I think sometimes people get, different. They're like, oh, you're a wedding photographer, or, oh, you're a journalist, or, oh, you do that, and then, and they don't really respect what's going on. They don't.
Yeah.
And so, but just so I say it, I hugely respect wedding photographers that do that. And because sometimes you're dealing with bridezilla.
yeah. I mean, you're dealing the day is the bridezilla. It's almost like where you kind of know that it's going to be an emotional day for certain people, and a lot of times, being there, being a photographer, being present, you are susceptible to emotions as well. Like, you understand, that's what makes you a good photographer, is that you can understand when, the matriarch of the family is there, and that's a good photo opportunity, or the three, the grandfather and the being able to witness all that, and being able to sense it and feel it, I think, and then react by pulling the shutter. I think that, yeah, the day is wrought with emotions, and to not pay attention to it as a photographer, you're missing a lot of the telltale things that are occurring. That's what you're being paid to capture.
Right.
Along with the traditional photos, but yeah, I mean, I have, and I've actually slowed down with the wedding photography, because I've felt like, being, it can make you not want to pick up your camera for your own purposes or for other purposes. And, most weddings are on Saturdays, and a lot of really other, like, good stuff happens on Saturdays. And as a wedding photographer, you tend to sell off those Saturdays way before you put any personal value on them. So you don't know when certain days are going to conflict, and you signed a contract to be there on that day. There's no getting out of it. There's no calling in sick as a wedding photographer, or as a photographer in general. I mean, it's just how do you do it? But I think, the wedding photographers that are out there, I can guarantee you that they are all very, they may be wedding photographers by trade, but I can tell you what, you get them in their element. You look at their personal work, and they are some of the sharper, because of that pressure. I think it kind of funnels you into expecting a certain quality, looking for certain moments, tapping into the emotional aspect of it, and so yeah, those days can be the whole day can be a bridezilla, and of course, if you have any personalities are going to clash, and not necessarily yours between you and the bride, but I think just the day is wrought with emotion, and you can definitely see where there's a potential for things to kind of go off the tracks. Yeah, I admire those dedicated photographers out there that rely on wedding work to pay the bills. But I can guarantee you, they're not just shooting weddings. They are probably some great travel photographers. They're probably some great journalists, portraiture photographers. I mean, there's some really they're a talented bunch, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you literally want the pressure, or run yourself through the pressure cooker, and you will come out of it a much better photographer if you learn the discipline of wedding photography.
Yeah, discipline that's a perfect word, because it definitely, we in the creative space, we don't think about discipline, as a creator or somebody who's artistic, but to be able to hone that craft, it does take an incredible amount of discipline. Part of that is, I think, as you alluded to, taking things that were failures and turn them into successes, right? Like you're taking the challenge that you're faced with, or maybe you ran out of space on your card, and and you're like, oh snap, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe you could tell us a story about one of those failures, if there's like one that really stands out to you, and what you learned from it and how you turned that into victory.
Well, probably the biggest failure that I could express is having gear stolen from you. And it's one of the things where you can be focused on your work and it can walk off. You're not paying attention to it. You make it easy for it to walk off. I've had, in some of my earlier years, I had a videographer take one of my camera bags thinking that it was his. He didn't intend on stealing or taking it, but I thought it was gone. I'd never see my stuff again until I started asking around, and then I was able to locate it. But so actually having cameras or a camera stolen from me and not recovered, that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned from was to never let your guard down. Never be so involved in being there or being a part of the moment. A lot of times, whether it's a wedding or whether it's a concert, or if you're shooting photos for a band and you've got, credentials to be on the stage practically. I mean, you really, you have to, look at it from a liability standpoint. Your gear is how you make a living. You can't expect it to, you can't expect to put something down and just never, so that was one of the lessons that I learned from, is to keep it, we work so hard as professional photographers. I mean, we spend a good amount of our profits, on gear. So we put a lot of money back into just being able to do the work. I know that I didn't, necessarily need to have a new camera, but I felt like in order to stay up with the quality and what the work that's being put out, you do have to upgrade from time to time. So we work so hard for our gear, you can't fumble it by putting it down and hoping that everybody is going to protect it for you. I've done so many events and put gear down, and people have been I've never had any issues, but one out of a couple hundred, you're going to run into the possibility of that. So that was one of them. But photographically, I think it's having an understanding of the gear that you have selected. I've always prided myself in being able to, as much as I shoot Nikon, I really love Canon.
He dropped the Nikon word on us.
Yeah. Well, I own more Nikon than gear than any else, but I love Fuji. I love Sony. I don't own Sony, any Sony gear, but I really like it. I know. I think
switched to mirrorless this spring. So
man, congratulations. I mean that is monumental, because it's tough to Canon shooters are some a loyal bunch. But I've always when I was helping with video productions, I got to do some assisting, and I used Canon gear. It wasn't my gear, but it was phenomenal gear to use, and it convinced me that they put out some great gear. And then, of course, seeing what Sony has put out within the last few years is remarkable. So I'm excited about the future. I mean, I've always appreciated the gear that I've had, but it doesn't mean that you can't keep advancing. You almost have to nowadays. Things come out, make your job easier, make certain types of photography possible. I think being a music photographer, you're in there. You're always going to be photographing with stage lighting. And if it's anything other than that, if it's perfectly lit stuff, it almost doesn't look right sometimes. So I like the moodiness. I've learned to embrace you know, the bad lighting and figuring out how to work with it or how to make it, you know, you're there to kind of tell a story, but you're also there to you know, capture an image that presents itself to you. So being able to pick up one ball and put that one down and pick up the other when you want to, you know, being able to do that, you know, it sometimes takes having different gear or different, certainly different lenses, but I'm talking, you know, from one brand to the other, there's certainly obvious differences in you know, in the color and all of those things. So you know, I say, you know, accept, you know, be an early adopter of it, you know, try it out, you know, talk to people who are using it. I mean, I think that that's the beauty of photography, is that, you know, we can all be, you know, we can all be, you know, given the same camera, and we're all going to shoot differently. I think it has more to do with the way you're going to take the picture than the camera. But it does certainly help to have gear that is going to do what you're expecting it to do. But being familiar with that gear, you know, instead of looking to upgrade, you know, there's always something new to learn. There's always a technique. There's always, you know, I rarely trade in old cameras. I just relegate them to the higher, you know, higher, what's the word I'm looking for? Risk factor. You know, so like, you know, one of my older Nikons that I used for weddings is now my kayak and nature camera.
Really?
You know, it's not that I want to lose it or want it to be splashed with water, but you know what? I think that in the pursuit of great photography, sometimes you have to risk it. I don't want to take myself out of contention of working by taking my newest camera with me on those adventures, but so. It helps to have a kit. It helps to have those older lenses that you still want to shoot with. So I rarely trade in gear. You know, I buy gear when I need it, but I always try to convince myself to learn more on the gear that I have. Use it differently. Explore how to get different types of photographs with it. So I think a lot of that has kept me, you know, pretty grounded. But the you know, getting off topic, the answer would be familiar with whatever gear that you have. Learn how to make coffee with it. You know, when you can be that comfortable with your gear, that you can walk into any situation and cover it. You can allow for yourself to you know, to do what you do best, and then you're comfortable with the gear. You know what to expect from it. You know what to be prepared with, so you know, those are the things that I think come in, you know, really handy. I know that you know, I get the magazines and I see all of the advances and I see how I could make use of a lot of the new gear, but there is still a lot for all of us to learn. Being able to utilize the gear that you have and put it into, you know, you have to take it with you. The pictures aren't going to take themselves. The picture's not going to be taken if the camera is at home. So, you know, having the ability to carry you know, a camera with you, knowing what to be prepared with, knowing what to look for, you know, those are all the things that I think, you know, being prepared, and I think that's the you know, some advice that I could give, you know, is learn to use what you got.
Yeah, that's a big lesson. I mean, you know, being prepared and knowing your gear, like you said, is so huge, so that you can get past the technical and get more into the creative. I think when I switched to mirrorless earlier this year, I was amazed and perplexed at the size of the Sony batteries.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh, this is cool. Part of the enticement of switching was it's a smaller body. I don't have to carry as much weight in gear wise. I can throw it in a small backpack and go. And then realized, wow, these batteries don't last very long.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest complaint that I have for that. And so, I have 2 batteries or 3 batteries and 3 chargers, and then bought an external kind of battery configuration. But yeah, being prepared and being it's some great advice that and it's obviously coming from your experiences, which are wealth of information, in taking those challenges and being confident too. I think is it helps you to grow.
Yeah.
Your encouragement to know your gear and to learn how to use it differently instead of just leaving it on
Yeah.
autofocus and
Yeah.
but I think the thing that really stood out to me, what you shared, was about telling that story. And I think that's the thing that resonates with people across got other
Yeah.
dialogue going on. Hopefully it's not
Yeah.
distracting here on the phone.
No.
But telling that story and that resonating with people, you have, just going through some of your work. I know I haven't seen all of it, but some of the stuff that you've posted, the thing that really stands out to me, looking at the images that you produce, is that you are a storyteller. And people can snap a pic, and there's the old adage that a photo is worth 1,000 words and that whole thing, but not every image or every picture tells a story. And I think to be able to do that and do that in a way that really draws people in is a talent and a gift. And so, considering that the accomplishments that you've had and the things that you've done so far, what inspires you today? What keeps you going from a creative standpoint? I mean, obviously, from a business standpoint, what keeps you going is you got to continue to pay bills and eat and that type of thing. But I think just more on a creative side, what are you doing now that helps you to keep it from just becoming, oh, this is just what I do, or oh, this is just a job now?
Yeah, I think that in the past I was dead set on calling my profession, or my job. I wanted to be a photographer. When you're younger and you promise yourself these things in life, it's like I want to set out and be a professional photographer. It sounds fun. I have to say, looking at of course, like compelling work, no matter what it is, whether it's weddings, whether it's music, whether it's fashion, whether it's product shots, whether it's corporate photography, which usually has it has a stigma about it being kind of, oh, I got to do a corporate gig. I think more recently, I think just being the same photographer that I am at the concerts, and being the same photographer that I am there as at a corporate gig. You have to open yourself up. You're there for a reason. You're there to shoot photos your job is to cover it and cover it well. I mean, we all hold ourselves to certain degrees of quality, and so for me, I have to hold myself to a certain level. Being able to have fun doing the corporate stuff, having the ability to let yourself enjoy the job, I think makes it not be just a job. I think that when I was doing only weddings and I wasn't giving myself any other outlet, I felt like all I got to shoot photos of was other people's special moments, where now I actually enjoy I enjoy shooting those moments. I enjoy shooting the corporate things, because there's ways of challenging yourself and getting the results that you challenge yourself to get. And when you can come away with something that would have been, a stuffy, corporate gig, you made it, a fun, interactive, gig that you were able to, wave your magic wand and get people to do the things that you want them to do for the camera. When you start to realize that power that you wield, you tend to start having fun, having more fun doing it, So I think, trying to see that, weddings may not be my first choice in creative outlet. I'm certainly challenged by the other compelling work that's out there. So I take a lot of inspiration from seeing other wedding work. But also, the same way I would approach a fashion show, the same way I would approach, shooting a red carpet, where you have a few seconds to talk to actors, actresses, movie stars, high visibility personalities, and a lot of times, having fun, the same exhilaration that you can have for shooting the fun stuff, it's really up to you to open up the same avenues for the stuff that you might consider stuffy. It's up to you to pull it out of the moment. It's up to you. I've talked to a lot of more experienced photographers than myself, and a lot of what their secret is take the bull by the horns when you're there. There's no sense in coming back home wishing that you could have asked the person to recreate that moment, or just hold still for a few seconds longer, or maybe improving upon a slight, taking the creative control and saying, I'm not going to let this be just, I was standing here and he was standing there. It's like, well, let me play with this. Let me, use this moment to, pull as much of this out of the moment as I can. And a lot of times taking the responsibility for getting the photo, making the photo happen, putting the cherry on top, making sure that it's a complete photo. A lot of times these things are going to occur on their own, but then driving it home just that extra little distance is what makes the photo great. So you're not looking at any gig as being more or less fun. It should all be fun. I mean, we're photographers. It's not the worst work. You have to have, I think, and of course, experience is always going to help feel your way through. If you don't have an apprentice, or if you don't have somebody that has, taken you under their wing to kind of give you a lot of the tricks of the trade, it's up to you to go out there, experience what it's like to sort your way through to getting the photos that you want. It's totally worth it. It's one of those things where the harder you work, the more it reflects in your work. So, not being satisfied with just getting the moment as it was. Maybe a little choreography, sometimes helps. And there's nothing wrong with it. Completely. It just depends on what you're claiming it is. I mean, I make no claims. I mean, you let the photo speak for itself. You do as photographers, we do our best to capture the natural stuff, and you have to keep your eyes peeled for it to happen. But a lot of times it's like, what, if I could get you to step a little bit more this direction, and if I could get you to turn around, and sometimes you can create the photo that would have never ever occurred if you wouldn't have tilted things a certain way and adjusted things a little bit. You have control. That's part of your job as a photographer, to not let the moment pass. Sometimes it does take, hey, I think we could do better. I think we could get that shot a little bit better, or let's try it this way. That was a good one, but let's try it this way. So keeping that understanding the power that you wield creatively it helps you get those photos that you dream of taking. You know, I think that if you wait for it to happen organically, you know, a lot of this stuff isn't going to happen, and you know, wait around for a long time, and it may not happen the way you want it to. But there's nothing wrong with you know, with setting up the shot. You know,
Yeah.
of course, you're not going to try to sell it as something it's not, but you know, getting the shot that you're envisioning, I think that's the challenge, and I think that's what I kind of tap into. You know, I've come home and looked at you know, hundreds of photos and not felt the wow so many times. You know, you think like, wow, if I would have just you know, made a small request, I could have, you know, gotten this photo to look the way I really want it to, or if I would have just paid attention to this little detail at the time. You know, so some of those are the things that I try to learn from is, you know, having an opportunity to shoot stuff and then you come home and it's not what, you know, it doesn't give you the warm fuzzies that you wanted it to. But a lot of that is up to you to get it right, you know, on the, you know, on the spot, you know. So sometimes not letting those moments pass where you know, not as, you know, not enough time has you know, has happened, you know, where it's, you know, you're.
Yeah, there he is.
All right.
So sorry for the interruption. I was just letting people know as they were jumping back on, kind of summarizing some of the things that you shared. One, and it's so much. There's so much to share, and it's so hard to try to cram that all into, you know, a 45-minute or 50-minute discussion. So I look forward to part 2.
Oh yeah. Anytime.
And I think, like you were talking about, taking the bull by the horns when you're in that moment, recognizing you're in that moment, and really not giving into fear, regardless of who you're talking to or who the subject is or what the status is, and not necessarily organically waiting for a moment to happen is so huge. I remember there was a time where I was photographing the BCS title game, and Texas was playing Ohio State. And Matthew McConaughey was obviously a big Longhorns fan, and he was on the sideline, and happened to be standing right in front of me. And I said, you know, very respectfully, I said, "Hey Matthew, could you give me some horns for the camera?" And he turned around, and it was a moment that all I had to do was ask. And he totally turned around, and it's probably one of my most published images. I mean, if you Google my name along with Matthew McConaughey, you'll see he's in his leather jacket on the sidelines giving one of these, and it was just one of those, just like you said, I didn't give in to fear. And I was, you know, like you also mentioned earlier, being professional. And I think being professional is being respectful and kind to people. And I just simply asked. And I could have totally fanboyed or geeked out. But I was like, hey, you know, he's here to enjoy the game just like I am. I've got a job to do. And that's part of the job. And so, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that, because those are things that you're not going to learn in a class. You're not going to learn unless you're in the field actually doing that, and then sharing that with people here is huge. And I think a lot of times we can give into our fear. We give into our fear, like, oh, that's Matthew McConaughey, I'm not going to say anything. You know, you're like, oh, and then you get too much in your head. And it stops you from getting that shot. It stops you from having that moment. So cool. So I am so grateful for your time today. I'm so grateful for the things that you shared, and the wisdom that and the experiences for other people that might not be doing that, or they're thinking about doing that, or they're wondering, hey, is this something that I can even do? And by your example, and it is inspiring. And so
I hope so. I hope that's one of the things that is a takeaway, is that, you know, I didn't graduate from any. I mean, I took some journalism courses and I took as many photography classes and workshops as I could, but I never graduated with a degree. And I mean, I wish I would have, but I ended up having certain opportunities unfold for me, and so you don't have to have, it's get out there and start with the things that you're most familiar with. Start with the stuff that you understand. Get out there and shoot photos. But yeah, I hope this is inspiring. I hope that, it helps to inspire others. And I can tell you, it's being, having you do this interview is inspired me. I am gonna probably start posting more on my Instagram, because
please do.
It's a way of sharing the photos that I've taken, the places that I've been, and hopefully that's inspiring to others who are out there that want to do the same. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, again, if you guys aren't following Chris on Instagram, you just heard him. Right now, he's going to start posting more of some of that great work that he does. So we look forward to seeing that and giving it a thumbs up. And don't forget to comment. It's Saucy Images LTD. Yeah. And I'm going to make a video of this afterwards, and I'll leave it in. I'll leave your link in the description.
Oh wow! Thank you.
And if you're looking for a photographer that knows what he's doing, and
I travel.
This is your guy right here.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it, man. And I absolutely love what I do, and that's one of the things that if you are out there wanting to have a job, a hobby that's rewarding, pick up a camera. Share some of those images that you take, and let it take you places.
Nice. Well, thanks again, Chris. You're awesome. And
you're awesome.
Yeah, definitely want to connect again, and in a bit, and let us know what we can do to help promote you further. I mean, you're doing some amazing things, and if people get the opportunity to work with you, they'll see firsthand that you're not going to find anybody that's more professional and more respectful and easy to work with. So
thank you. And if anybody has any questions, or if they're interested in technical stuff with photography, I'm happy to help. If I can share what I'm lucky to have, then I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to share what I know. So thank you for everything, Eric. I appreciate it. I hope you and the family are doing well. We miss you here in Texas.
Yeah.
And I hope to catch up with you in person soon. We'll talk again.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. I'm planning on being back for the 2019. So
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that, Eric.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay, man. We will talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Take care.